Welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I'm Chase Earle, joined by Alex Lord and Jake Gordon. Day one of free agency was an exciting one for Falcons fans. They signed David Onyemata. They bring back Bradley Pinion, Keith Smith. They extend Chris Lindstrom 5 years, 105 mil, which we'll get into a little later. But the biggest signing was Jesse Bates. And then today they also add Taylor Heineke. They were probably the most active team in free agency. And in my opinion, they were the winners in free agency. Jake, what sticks out to you most about the first 24 hours of this free agency window that's been opened up?
I'll give a positive and a negative. I think the positive is it has to be the Jesse Bates signing. It's something that we all wanted. We've all been asking for. Um, he's really going to be a difference maker for them. I don't think the contract was too bad. They really front loaded it, which I like a lot. But Jesse Bates is awesome. He's a great player. The Falcons, they need good players. I'll say it again. I don't care. They need good players. I don't care what they play. David Onyemata was a sneaky good pickup for the low. There were a couple guys that went to other teams that I would have liked to have snagged, like TJ Edwards went to the Bears, but that's a lot of money for a linebacker. But I thought it was positive overall. I thought they got better, and that's really what matters. The negative, I don't really love the Jonnu Smith trade. It was a seventh round pick. He's got a big contract, and I know they're not paying all of it, but he was really bad last year. Maybe being back with Arthur Smith, he can find something though.
Yeah, what sticks out most to me was the positions that they addressed initially. You spoke on Jonnu Smith. That's a tight end, a fullback, and an interior defensive lineman. I mean, that's an Arthur Smith haul if I've ever heard of one. To me, I think Onyemata was a little bit of an overpay. I can't believe, he's around $12 million per year. But when you can sack the quarterback, you name your own price, really. Overall, it was a great haul. They solidified a lot of needs. Jesse Bates is going to be that leader on the back end for years to come. He'll help Richie Grant along the way. And a safety that can kind of play quarterback from the back end is very, very valuable in today's NFL. Everybody's passing, and a safety that can, see the field as a quarterback, invaluable. I am going to oppose Jake for a little. I love the Jonnu Smith thing. We're all kind of holding our tongues based on what the Falcons are going to do with his contract. We know they're going to rework it. How team-friendly it gets, we don't know. Nobody knows yet. But like I said, the reason why he's on that lucrative albatross of a contract now is because he blew up with Arthur Smith. He got paid from Arthur Smith's offense. So I'm super excited to see what Arthur Smith can do. 12 sets, 13 sets, that's 2 tight end sets, 3 tight end sets. Hell, we might even see 4 tight ends with Keith Smith out there. I can't wait to see Jonnu Smith and Arthur Smith combine in Atlanta.
Yeah, and real quick, somebody that we didn't talk about before we move on, Caden Ellis is another guy. He had 7 sacks last year, 2 forced fumbles. He was a pretty productive player for New Orleans. I hate that we're picking up a bunch of their players, but he seems like a pretty solid pickup.
Well, I don't hate that we're picking a bunch of their defensive players because their defense has been 10 times better than us for the last decade or so. I agree with you, Alex, on the Jonnu Smith trade. I know they're going to restructure his deal, so it's going to look a little bit better. I also think it's exciting that he's reuniting with Arthur Smith and what we can see in those 2 and 3 tight end sets. I think it allows Pitts to act more as a versatile chess piece and wide receiver, which is what he really brings value as. That's why you drafted him 4th overall, not to be blocking as a tight end. And you can utilize Jonnu Smith in those roles. So I'm excited about that. And he also wanted to come to Atlanta. He kind of forced his way to Atlanta because he wanted to reunite with Arthur Smith. He thought he could bring out the best in him. So I think there could be a lot of value there. And then they're going to restructure his contract. I don't think he's going to get paid nearly as much as we've seen, 10, 11 mil, whatever we are going to be on the hook for. Then you re-sign Chris Lindstrom. I think a lot of these deals, you mentioned an overpay on Onyemata. You might have slightly overpaid Chris Lindstrom, making the highest paid guard. But at the end of the day, the Falcons just need good players, as you said, Jake. And those are 2 damn good players. They needed help at all 3 levels of the defense. And in day 1, they got help at each level. I really like the Caden Ellis signing. I think it's high upside, only $11 million guaranteed over 3 years. If the guy comes out and shows what he was the last half of last year when he had 6 sacks in the last 7 games. And I know he's probably not going to play that role, but he was a really good linebacker, weak side linebacker role. He can kind of do everything. I really like that's a good pickup, high upside pickup. If it was a flash in the pan, okay, well, you got a decent linebacker. But if it was something really there, you got a guy who can rush the passer, a versatile chess piece, and who knows better to use him than Ryan Nielsen and Terry Fontenot, who helped draft him. So a lot of exciting picks, but yeah, I agree that the most exciting was Jesse Bates. That guy's an all-pro, durable, and we needed help at the back end more than anything. I mean, and more than anything, he's going to be a leader of this defense. Especially in the secondary. And I think you can be excited. I think Richie Grant showed some flashes. He needs to be a little bit more consistent, but I think Jesse Bates will help in a lot of those areas. It's a lot easier to play well when you have other good players around you. And now you look at the Falcons defense, AJ Terrell, Bates, Richie Grant. If you go out there and draft a guy like Christian Gonzalez or Devin Witherspoon in the first round, you actually have an identity. You have a strength on this defense. That is one of the better secondaries on paper going into the season. You get a little bit at linebacker. Maybe you add a pass rusher the rest of this free agency. You still have an entire draft. There's a reason to be cautiously optimistic about the Falcons defense, which is something we haven't been able to say in a decade. I mean, maybe 2 decades. I don't know when the last time we had a good defense.
Yeah, and something else that I thought was interesting. I got lucky. I guess I somewhat called this one when I did my offseason overhaul. I said Taylor Heineke. I wanted Taylor Heineke. I thought if you were not going to bring in someone like Lamar Jackson and you're not going to draft a quarterback, he would have been perfect. I had him pegged a little low. I think I said 2 years, $12 million, and he ended up getting 220. But a lot of these guys are getting big deals. Like, that's something that I've noticed so far. These free agent deals have been massive so far. Tremaine Edmonds is like the 4th highest paid linebacker in NFL history now.
That's a bad deal.
What are the Bears doing? What are the Bears doing?
They trade Roquan Smith just to pay another linebacker.
They paid 2. They paid 2 linebackers.
Yeah, they got
Heineke's deal actually came in less than that, Jake. I don't know if you saw, but like they initially said 2 for $20, and then I think it came in at like 2 for $14, and it really is like a 1 for $7 kind of deal where he's only where he's only guaranteed like $5 or $7 million, $5 million this year and $2 million next year. So it's actually, I think, a really solid deal. I mean, he's getting paid like a backup. I think he's going to come in there and compete with Ritter. We'll talk about it in another segment strictly on that. But I think that was I liked when you wrote about that, and I was happy that it happened. One thing I want to briefly say about that, though, is I don't think it completely counts the Falcons out of taking a quarterback in the first round.
Me neither.
Like, I know everyone's like, oh, I guess we're going with Desmond Ritter. And listen, it definitely looks that way. But unless the Falcons are dead set, like they really believe this is the guy, can they really go through another cycle of passing over quarterback prospects if they think one of the other guys could be the guy?
Yeah, and you look at somebody like Taylor Heineke brought in as competition. That's a guy who went toe-to-toe in the playoffs with Tom Brady. I'm sure y'all remember that game, the dive for the pylon. The kid was electric. He is like dollar store Brett Favre, I think is the best way to put it. He's going to go out there and he's going to sling it around for better or for worse. And I kind of like that, though. He's got a little moxie. He's
from Georgia, too. He's a Georgia boy. Lawrenceville or something?
Collins Hill.
I don't know.
Gwinnett County. But yeah, no, I like it. I really like the pickup. I think he was definitely your best option, especially seeing Mike White got 2 years and $16 million, which is nuts to me. I would gladly take Heineke at the price they got him.
Yeah, backtracking to the Jesse Bates signing, I just want to point out that for a lot of the year, Richie Grant wasn't playing the role that was probably his strength. And coming out, he was heralded for his versatility. But playing safety in the NFL is so incredibly hard to do, especially when you're tasked with playing the nickel, playing strong safety, playing free safety, playing in the box. There's so many different alignments and therefore so many different responsibilities that you have to have. Jesse Bates is going to allow Richie Grant to play to his strengths. So that's something to look forward to.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I'm super excited about the defense this year. I'm excited to see the strides that it makes. I'm excited to see how Ryan Nielsen implements these guys. They finally have a little bit of talent. And listen, Arthur Smith's offense, you saw what he's able to do with basically nothing last year. I mean, Kyle Pitts was out for the season. Marcus Mariota was hamstringing the offense. The offensive line wasn't as good as they played, I don't think. They didn't have a wide receiver too. He basically made, lemonade out of oranges. Like he was just doing things just because he was really good at what he's doing. So I think the offense is always going to be okay, at least average. If they can at least prove and the defense gets average, you're at least competitive every week. And I know they were kind of competitive, but I think really competitive every week and can knock off some of these better teams that usually blow us out of the water.
Listen, the defense was bottom 5 last year. Like if they could
it might have been the worst in the league.
Yeah. If they can improve to just league average, 16, a lot of those L's are going to turn to W's.
Yeah, and I think
you talk about Jesse Bates before we move on to that real quick. Like Jesse Bates is going to allow Richie Grant to play more of a natural position, I think, and I think that's going to be really big for him in terms of not having to wear so many hats.
Yeah, I think the Falcons lost like 7 one-score games last year. It was something pretty ridiculous. So they're not that far off from being a pretty good team, and I think a lot of these moves can help them be a different team, whether it's Desmond Ridder or Taylor Heineke under center. That's my opinion.